eliminating your opponents, then anything goes, and anybody can get killed. And so it's very dangerous to start trafficking in revolution. But this is a system that's poisoned itself so badly and is so awfully corrupt that there doesn't seem to be any other alternative now except to oppose it, and perhaps oppose it, rather strongly.
Okay, so Jim, right now some of these folks are actually camping out in tents, and it snowed on them, at least here in Albany. You suspect that these activities might die down a little bit when it gets further on in the winter. What's going to happen in the spring?
Well, the spring's going to be a whole other thing, because instead of getting colder every day and people getting more sort of demoralized, this is sort of their Valley Forge moment, where they're going to hole up in the snow and just sit down and hunker down and wait for better weather. Yeah. But I think when that happens, they'll emerge, and the days will be getting nicer and nicer and nicer, and they'll be feeling more and more stimulated.
Yeah.
And what I wonder is, you get to a point where all of a sudden you reach certain thresholds where the police start to get jumpy and nervous, and something happens, and one kid misbehaves, and all of a sudden a shot is fired, and things really start getting out of hand. And I can very easily imagine that we'd be in a situation in the spring where there is actual violence, and that U.S. troops have to be somehow employed or deployed to keep the peace in places like Washington, or maybe even places that we haven't even anticipated yet, where there might be clashes. I mean, who knows? Maybe something will happen in Atlanta or Minneapolis or Dallas or Los Angeles or anywhere at this point. We don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was some actual serious violence not long before the spring really got underway.
Well, I've heard that the anti-war movement didn't really get taken seriously until the veterans started coming back from Vietnam and joining the movement. So can you see a scenario here where some
that's already happened? I mean, some of these guys have been injured in Oakland. They shot this one guy in the head with a tear gas canister, and I don't think he died, but he was very badly injured.
Can you see this movement being joined in the spring by maybe some former Wall Streeters themselves, and then?
That I don't believe, but you raise the specter of the military dudes and the veterans, and one thing I can see is there are an awful lot of guys who have come back from the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, which have been going on for 8 and 10 years respectively, and we have trained a lot of warriors. We have trained a lot of warriors and brought them home, and they're just out there. A lot of them don't have any employment. They're, they're idle, and they're probably getting more and more pissed off. But they have a lot of skill at, destruction and killing.
Yeah.
And God knows where that could lead. That in itself seems to be full of potentials that are rather frightening. Mm-hmm. So my guess is that the spring is going to be really spooky. By then, I imagine that the banking fiasco is going to be even deeper and worse than it is now, and that the gap between the rich and the poor will only be more upsetting, and that there will be even more people who have run out of their unemployment benefits and have absolutely nowhere to go and nothing to do and nothing to lose. So I think it's going to be a very lively time. And the one thing that's very hard to see is how this ends up being expressed in the true political affairs of the people who actually are supposed to do things, like the Congress people and the Department of Justice. They haven't done anything about the misdeeds and misconduct on Wall Street. And are they going to be pushed where, for example, is Mr. Obama going to be pushed to have to do something? And but there's no sign that he can be dragged to that point where he's going to insist that the Justice Department actually take some action. So I think it's going to be really interesting.
So, Jim, I imagine there's got to be at least a handful or so Occupy Wall Streeters or Occupy Somewhere Elsers listening to this podcast. Do you have a message for that person right now, maybe huddled in a tent listening? It's
going to be a very dark and difficult time for the United States, and I hope that the Occupy Wall Streeters are reflecting on what it is they actually do want to accomplish and what kind of a country they really would like to live in, and that this is not going to be just an opportunity to run their country into a ditch. It's already there. We need guys who want to attach it to a come along and pull it out of the ditch. And we really don't know how we're going to do that yet. And I have a lot of faith in the younger generation, if only because they're so different than we were. And, they're not cynical. They are truly idealistic. And they truly want to live in a country that they're capable of caring about. So I salute them and wish them well in their dark winter of Occupy Wall Street despair.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Jim.
Okay. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, hi. This is Leon from Seattle again, and I wanted to follow up on the subject of the S&P downgrade. First of all, I believe that our economy just no longer has the earning power to pay off the debt that we have accumulated. I think we've all talked about that, from the county to the clear up to the federal government and household and student loan and everything else. It's simply, I think, a situation of being in deep water, and the distance we must swim is too great for the strength that we have available to us. To extend my metaphor, I think all we can do is tread water. And the trillion-dollar question is, as Ernest Hemingway said, about bankruptcy, slowly and then quickly. And my hope is that we have more time in the slowly phase. Hence, we can get our fiscal house in order that may soften the blow a little bit when the inevitable quickly comes. And I completely agree that and I think that we can use this time to maybe get some things in place. We seem, from my vantage point, completely ill-prepared for the changes that are going to occur with the disappearance of our wealth. And I think that's the anxiety. I think everybody on some level understands that. That's the anxiety that, these Occupy movements and everything else, is that it's happening, and I think it's picking up velocity. And it's just too bad that there's so much inertia in terms of just dealing with it. But anyway, I appreciate your forum, and I'm glad to be part of it. And I thank you so much for all that you do. Bye now.
Hello, Jim and Duncan. My name's Katie, and I'm calling from the West Coast. I noticed that you guys are doing quite a few podcast episodes with authors of books, and I just thought I would alert you to a new youth book that came out. It's a fiction book called Crunch. It's about a family on the East Coast. The parents are celebrating a honeymoon when a crunch comes, a second honeymoon, and they're left to fend for themselves with neighbors. It's a really delightful book. My husband and I and our kids really enjoyed it. So maybe that's an author who might like to come on the show. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the KunstlerCast featuring James Howard Kunstler. To leave a listener comment, call toll-free at 866-924-9499. Send email to letters@kunstlercast.com. You can listen to all of our past programs, join our email list, find out how to book Jim to speak in your area, and talk about the show with other listeners at KunstlerCast.com. I'm your host, Duncan Crary. Thanks for listening.